So welcome everyone. My name is Gail Boyle, and we're really thrilled to have this gathering this evening, and thank you for joining us. This is John Pritts. John, you want to tell us about yourself?
I'm a new grandpa.
Yay!
I am, Gail and I have been co-presidents of the Historical Society for 4 years now.
Yes.
A long time. And I'm also the historian in Mamaroneck. And that's about it.
So we want to welcome you to the Women's Club, and we want to thank the members of the Women's Club who are here, and also the Women's Club as a whole for letting us use their space. It's very generous. And?
Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to take about 5 to 10 minutes max to just do quickly the Historical Society business meeting. This is our annual general membership meeting, and it's always just an honor to use this time to meet, to celebrate the veterans in the memory. And so thank you, guests and members as well. Will the board members who are present stand? And I'd like to introduce you to everybody. Right now, John and I are the co-presidents. Vice President George Bigadician, Treasurer Don Sutherland, Recording Secretary in the back, Phyllis Kaskel, Archivist in the back, Mike Tripicco, Trustee at Large, Ray Maldonado, Trustee at Large, Dennis Cuccinella, and President Emeritus, Carol Aiken. And not here this evening is Betty Pollack, who has resigned her seat on the board, and we just want to thank her. She's been a phenomenal member of the board, an old-time Mamaroneck person, and very helpful in everything. So thank you, Betty.
Now, Gail and I have been president, as I mentioned, co-presidents, as I mentioned before, for 2 terms. Our bylaws suggest that that's the limit. So we are going to be welcoming new leadership tonight to the Board of Trustees. We thank the members and the board for their support and partnership, and we greatly appreciate the support of the community. We have done a lot of different things in the community, and we hope that it's appreciated, of course, and we hope to continue it with the new leadership.
So we'd like to introduce you to the candidates who are running for office right now on the open Board of Trustees seats. First is Peter Fellows for president. Peter. Phyllis Kaskel, who has been serving for a few years now as the recording secretary, is running again because she loves it so much. John Pritts is no longer going to wear the president's hat. He'd like to wear a trustee hat, so he's running for a 2-year term. And Mike Tripicco is running again as a trustee in the archivist position for a 2-year term. We would like to hear a few words from Peter, if you're willing, Peter, to obviously a little sense of where you're going with the Historical Society.
Oh. It's kind of you guys know, big shoes to fill. So I'm not even going to try. I wanted to start, though, by recognizing, as you did, that we're here at the Women's Club. We are on Heathcote Hill. The history here, well, look at the history. You veterans are the history. We have living history here. But this hill goes right back to 1666 when John Richbell built his house here. And after him was Caleb Heathcote in the 1700s. And after him was J.P. Delancey after the Revolution. And during the Revolution, the Loyalists and the Patriots were fighting on this hill. Heathcote Hill is quite a saga. It's also the name of a group, I believe. A very nice band. But the thing I wanted to say to you is that one of the things that the co-presidents and the board has tried to do is to sustain and keep the legal entity known as the Historical Society going, because it's so important. We have responsibilities, we have assets that if this Historical Society wasn't functioning, wasn't viable anymore, I don't even know what we'd do. And there's other agencies or organizations which are in exactly that problem. It's the big one. So I would see the prime, my prime directive as sustaining and expanding the Historical Society. And the way I'd like to do that is to shift us from a project-focused group to a members-focused group. I don't think we've done enough for you guys. I don't think we've provided enough involvement for you. And so I am hoping to work with the board to have monthly member gatherings where we get together. And I'm envisioning sort of a two-part get-together. You come in at 7 o'clock, something like that. And for the first hour, we have a theme. Maybe the theme is Mamaroneck in the old days. Maybe the theme is schools. Maybe the theme is indigenous people who lived here before. Whatever it is. Half an hour presentation, half an hour for questions and answers, that type of thing. But the second part is the social and informal oral history part, where we get together, we have donuts and coffee, whatever, and we talk about Mamaroneck as we knew it, Mamaroneck as our parents knew it, Mamaroneck as we recall it. What buildings used to be here? Where did they go? What did they do? Wasn't there a fire over there? What happened here? Whatever happened to this family? The stuff that is, you guys are so rich in, the knowledge that you are so rich in, so that we would each month have a theme, and we would talk about the 17th, the 18th, the 19th century, the Civil War. And in the course of a year, our membership would have a basic understanding of the history of the place we live in. And the new people coming in, who don't know anything, they would enjoy that history about the past. But when they see you people talking about your families and how their roots extend into the beginnings of Mamaroneck, so 100 years back, they'll understand and appreciate the community that they've now moved into. That will turn these people and yourselves into engaged members, and I think that is what will build the society. So I just wanted to let you know, that's what you're in for. If you put your hand up and say, yeah. He said that.
Great, thank you. So perfect timing. Thank you. So obviously, since the candidates are running unopposed, I'm wondering if I could entertain a motion from the floor.
Like a second motion?
He didn't give it yet. George?
I'd like to make a motion that the membership approve the appointment of the following candidates. Peter Fellows as president, John Pritts as trustee, Phyllis Kaskel as our recording secretary, and Mike Tripicco as our archivist. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
No, that was perfect, George. We have a second from Ray Maldonado. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? We have a new board. Thank you.
We have a new president.
Thank you. And we have a very special program tonight. We're very fortunate. Mike Tripicco has put together his amazing archive collection and also gathered people from the community that he knows would like to share personal stories, basically what Peter was referring to. So thank you.
In addition to our board, we also have advisory boards, right, members that do things in their fields of expertise to help us. One such person, Mike Meany. Mike, would you stand up, please? I know you don't want to, but Mike Meany has helped us tremendously. Not only has he done all sorts of research projects that are now on our website, which if you haven't seen, I suggest you go on our website and look at them because they are terrific. He's got one, the Mamaroneck Avenue tour, happening right now that is fantastic. right? If you've lived here at all, you want to look at this thing. But not only does he do those kind of research projects, he's also taken over from me, as a matter of fact, because I wasn't very good, with our website and our Facebook page and social media. And he is now doing that for us. But if any of you have an interest or passion that you want to focus on and have us focus on, please let us know, all right? Talk to us, because we are looking for all sorts of subjects, cemeteries, for instance. Okay, if you have an interest in cemeteries, come see us. Let's talk, all right? Let's get involved.
Historic cemetery.
Right, I'm talking about ones here in the community. Landmarks, mural preservation, anything, all right? So please let us know. And with that,
Hand him the microphone.
Mike Tripicco.
I'll take it. Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, John. I'd like to, before we start the program, ask a couple people to come up here with me. Dennis?
You left.
You left already?
Oh, there you were smart.
Okay, Peter and Phyllis.
Mike, yeah, use the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Point it at your
I usually
mouth.
talk loud, but
Point it at your mouth, Mike. Point it at your mouth.
I usually talk with my mouth. Okay, anyway, we want to make a couple presentations tonight to Gail and John, and I wonder if, Peter? Hold on, I'm organized here. Phyllis?
Okay, so, passing of the torch, as it were. I want to recognize Gail and John, and I don't think I can. I don't think I can say enough about them, the time and the sacrifices they put in, and the extraordinary number of things that they've accomplished, which are almost superhuman. Just one, the one I'll highlight, being saving those historical Fenimore Cooper murals at the high school when everything was against them. It's going to be a movie. It will be coming out in the spring. It was a story that you have to speak to them about to get the behind the scenes. And as I said before, there's no way I can step into their boots as it was. I can only maintain, I hope, the breadth of work that they do. But if they would come forward now, we had to make a choice of what to do, to recognize them, give them something, and the board was against the cruise around the world, so.
She caught your cigarettes.
Thank you. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
You're not done yet.
Not done? Oh, that's
Okay. And in recognition, we have proclamations for each of you.
Oh, my goodness.
Whereas the village of Mamaroneck, since its establishment in November 16, 1895, has been blessed with leaders who have dedicated themselves to improving and advancing the betterment of all. And whereas the village is further blessed with the residents that have spent their lives serving the great community, giving of themselves to preserve the history of our community and educate their fellow residents about the rich social, cultural, and important events that have defined the village of Mamaroneck and the greater Mamaroneck community. And whereas one such individual, John Pritts, who has been a member of the board of the Mamaroneck Historical Society for many years and serving as co-president from 2019 to 2022. And historic preservation is more than merely the cataloging of events. It is a conversation with our past about our future, a process through which we celebrate events, people, places, and ideas that have shaped our communities, not only the events that give us this great pride, while also recognizing and learning from the mistakes made as a county and as a community. And whereas during John's leadership of the Mamaroneck Historical Society, a number of initiatives were undertaken to preserve and document the daily life of residents in the 20th century, and the creation of the interactive and multimedia exhibits making information about the village's past through accessible the use of modern technology. And whereas this comes to him honestly, as his mother, Gloria, was the village historian for many decades, a job John stepped into when she retired. And whereas John's term as co-president of the Mamaroneck Historical Society is soon ending and he will transition to a new role within the organization. And whereas in recognition of his many accomplishments and contributions to the community, it is proper and appropriate that the village of Mamaroneck recognize and congratulate John Pritts for his service to the community. Therefore, I, Mayor Thomas Murphy, in recognition of the contributions you have made to well-being of our community, commend you, the work you have done, and the person you are, and the difference you have made, and for your countless hours of dedicated service in saving the high school murals, the wall mural paintings, conducting and setting up agendas for monthly and historical society meetings, taking time to attend countless hours of other events in the community, including guest speaking, organizing events, and above all, your leadership interest in caring for the history of the community. Tom Murphy and Augustino Fosco, Treasurer.
Now for you don't have to read it. Just ditto.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Same with Gail.
Yeah.
Gail and John, as the recording secretary, I just have to listen and write it all down and get it in some kind of order. And they have done an absolute phenomenal job. I wouldn't have wanted to do this. I probably would have committed some kind of bad offense had I been in charge. But anyway, basically, it's whereas the village of Mamaroneck, since its establishment in November 16, 1895, has been blessed with leaders have dedicated themselves. And Gail and John both have been exemplary. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we can start our program now. I'd like to introduce a local resident who is by the name of Jim Camera. He served in the 101st Army Airborne in Vietnam in 1969. Till 1970, he was wounded in action and discharged at that point. Jim has taken to writing short stories about some of his experiences and his service in Vietnam, and I'd like him to come up forward and tell us a few of those stories. Jim?
Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here.
You want to sit?
Thanks to Mike. I'll stand, Mike.
Okay,
Just
I'll hold this for you.
one of the stories I wrote is called The Power of Color. It's when I was in Vietnam, I associated all my emotions through colors. And it never occurred to me that colors meant so much until I started to write about it. Writing is a form of therapy for me. So this is called The Power of Color. To this day, when I blunder, lapse into poor judgment, or otherwise fail to make the right choice, my mind goes back to 1969 and the reception center bus, painted blindingly yellow against the glare of the sun, that carried me to the start of basic military training. This bus deposited our motley group of raw green recruits into the harsh and unkind world of a new reality. It was the start of a life where every decision was made for us, and the consequences were paid when others were not carried out to the most exacting detail. We were stripped of our civilian clothing, shorn of our neglected, unkempt locks, and treated in an undignified manner, the likes of which I was completely unaccustomed to. I chose to be here, boosted my draft status to be a part of the war effort, and to avenge the death of a friend. And at 19, I was naive enough to think that I could make a difference, but I was taken back by this lack of respect and consideration. The reception center was anything but welcoming, as we were separated from one another to stand a foot apart and begin the process of de-individualization. The intent being to build each of us from the ground up in order to become a cog in the wheel of a unit with one sole purpose. Bright yellow in color reminded me of the red-orange buses that carried me to the Coney Island amusement park in the 1950s with my catechism group of boys and girls and chaperoning Catholic priests, amidst the sounds of laughter and excitement as the carnival came into view. So connected in my mind as this bus carried with it the anticipation of an exciting chapter in our lives, until the moment a demonic drill instructor grabbed the boy ahead of me and pulled him to the ground, holding him in place at the neck, with a shiny spit-shined boot glistening in the South Carolina sun, and the silver spittle flying as he shouted inarticulate obscenities at the frightened young man. The colors glistened in my mind, red with rage, gray with uncertainty, as I thought that this couldn't possibly happen to me, but unfolded in an instant, and I was grabbed by the arm and forced off balance, the hot breath of the glaring DI congesting and fouling the air in front of my sweating face. Your mom might be ugly, but boy, judging from the looks of you, he screamed at me. I tried desperately to contain my anger over the remark. Don't take it personally, I said to myself. He doesn't even know my mother. But still, the indignation swelled, red hot, to me, nearly to the point of no return. I was new to this environment and tried desperately to accept the adjustments I knew I'd have to make. I was in for the long haul, after all, for the next several years anyway. My attention was averted, however, as the DI moved on to the next target when I failed to react to his remark, and that taught me something in itself. This time the subject was a young man bigger than the rest of us, a bit slow-witted and awkward in his movements, and he was wearing an expression of complete bewilderment. The master sergeant in charge had hit pay dirt. "What's your name, boy?" He glared at the young man with malicious intent. "Bailey," came the nervous and barely audible reply. "Where you from, Bailey?" "Buffalo." Again the tense, short response. "I didn't ask what you was, I asked where you was from." The drill instructor guffawed loudly with the rest of the cadre in charge as Bailey from Buffalo stood awkwardly, staring at the red clay dirt at his feet. He fumbled for a plausible explanation until the DI interrupted his thoughts. "Fall back in formation, Bailey." Again, his cruel remark set off a burst of laughter as the recruit's eyes glistened with tears. Fortunately, the sergeant had noticed as he moved on to his next subject of ridicule. This moment stands out graphically, its white brilliance illuminating my mind with the appalling look on Bailey's face, the uncertainty of his environment, and the circumstances that brought him to it emblazoned across the face of all those around him to see. Time has done little to diminish that memory, and every bus that I've ridden on and every trip that I've taken by this mode of transportation reminds me of that bright yellow bus which comes to the forefront of my brain. I'm unsure of the reasons why these events are connected in colors. Maybe it has something to do with the white heat of emotion that ran through me at the time as I anticipated the outcome of each journey. The burning red desire to avenge my fellow recruits and my own callous treatment by the drill instructors. The mood that permeated the atmosphere as the mud rust-colored, open-sided canvas-topped bus took us from Saigon to Fubai, then on to a holding camp. I have a little intermission here. Then on to a holding camp likened to a pewter-shaded enclosure in my head, on our way to meeting an elusive and formidable enemy. Each emotion framed a color to accompany it, perhaps an attempt to cope with the beginnings of what we now know as PTSD, which was unheard of at the time. It all created feelings of doubt and hopelessness, like a gray and rainy overcast day. My emotions were extremely high back then, and the colors may have been my way of compartmentalizing events to keep them in perspective. Maybe. At times it is beyond my understanding, but suffice it as to say that colors stir passion and trepidation in me, and recalling these old dormant wounds is perhaps my way of finding closure in varying degrees or shades. As my outfit stepped down, we were greeted by the solemn faces from the troops of the Boonie Rats, whom we had come to replace. Their tour of duty was coming to an end, and ours was just beginning. We stood across from one another, facing in opposite directions, and no one made eye contact. The atmosphere was tinctured dull blue as shadows of late afternoon began to form. We were about to become the new Boonie Rats. We were then hustled to the waiting olive drab flying behemoth, larger than a city bus commonly known as a shithole or shinook. Its dual propellers whooping to the cadence and deafening hum of mosquitoes, filling the air with a hazy brown dust and nearly drowning out the sound of the waiting airborne bus. I turned my head for a final glance at those returning to the world, boarding their homeward bound transport, and I saw, in my mind, the Ella Reception Center bus where in essence my journey had begun. And just beyond, over the next hill, the orange sun fading to a burnt umber. Then as I turned to step up into this waiting, oversized freightage with a vision in my mind as black as pitch, black as the jungle around us of the harrowing place it was about to take me, wondering what was in store for me and thrilled and terrified at the same moment. Oh, how the complexion of my mind would alter the man I was to become. Thank you. Would you like to hear another one, everyone? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You want to sit?
No, you're right. This one is your right. This one is called Passion of Solitude. I wrote this during the pandemic to associate the solitude and the isolation that everyone had to deal with, and my experiences in the tunnel. It worked for me, and I didn't realize it until I started to write about it. The shaft of flickering light extends several feet in front of him. The ceiling of earth and rock suspends 6 inches above his head. As he twists and contorts his body to retrace his sluggish progression along the narrow passage, the illumination from his lighter plays trickery on his senses. His profile against the gnarled walls reveals a disfigured rendition of his remembered self, his misshapen head reflected disproportionate version of normality. He shuts his eyes and forces these haunting likenesses into the distant corners of his imagination. Focus, he utters into the stagnant air as the metallic click of his lighter returns everything to darkness. A putrid odor from its fluid stinging his nostrils. Digging the tip of his boots into the hardened earth, his hamstrings strained with the effort of belly crawling backward until a suggestion of light appears at the opening of the tunnel. He backs up against this openness until he is free of the enclosure and sucks at the air as though it is a rare offering that will be withdrawn before he has had enough to satisfy his hunger. The accessibility of the openness around him nearly overwhelms his senses, and he contemplates returning to the darkness of the tunnel, but only for an instant as he recalls the murkiness below. The sunlight is blinding, the vastness startling as he waits for his heartbeat to rediscover its natural rhythm. He awakens from the dream, the swing felt so veritable, the sensation of being in the tunnel so absolute. He contemplates the possible reasons for his apprehension of the recurring dream, this feeling of impending doom that hangs over him as he recalls succumbing to a fitful sleep the night before. What was the last thing he did? Watch the 11 o'clock news with his images of the massed populace traversing the urban transit landscape amid warnings of social distancing. And still they gather, fearful of the solitude that is suggested for the upcoming holiday season. Plan your Thanksgiving dinner solely for those you live with. The broadcasters verbalize warnings of the CDC. Keep the dinner parties under 10 attendees, preferably outdoors. Use disposable utensils and plates and have one person handle the food distribution. Suggest that each member of your party bring their own food. If you decide to eat indoors, open as many windows as the chill autumn air will allow, and operate the kitchen exhaust fan to minimize the germ count. Shelter in place in order to minimize your outdoor movements. The warnings resound. Stay connected, but avoid close contact. Be of affable holiday cheer, but keep your face covered, that no one can know your temperament. Be kind and open-hearted, but vigilant with proximity of others. The world has become a labyrinth of tunnels as the rats scamper about and return to their respective dwellings. The contradictions abound as he burrows into the warmth of his bed.
The morning sunlight plays stratagem across the spread as he turns his head from the light. He excavates deeper into the covers to shield his eyes from the shimmering brightness when all at once he realizes that this bed, this room, this house have become the tunnels of his torment. Then now he seeks their protection to feel their embrace in order to isolate himself from the rest of the universe. He considers this paradox. Is it possible to find safety in the thing that he's feared the most for more years than that he'd been alive when it began? Could the suffocating confinement of the tunnels take him into its clutches and offer comfort, quiescence, and calm as the world experiences disorder all around him? Logic tells him that this cannot be possible, and yet he yearns for enclosure and containment within, to breathe unclouded air in his cavern of solitude. Has his survival of the tunnels given him the strength to distance himself and maintain detachment? When he recalls the restrictions of the tunnels, he sees them in a new and divergent manner. Envisioning them now, he considers the safety of their isolation. You listen to the stories of many who have grown tired of the restrictions imposed by the pandemic, those who have become weary of behaving for the better good, those unaccustomed to compromising their freedom, and unwilling or unable to comply with suggestions of seclusion. But he can, or he has. The tunnels have served him well, and now he examines a way to know them in a distinct manner, one that offers restitution, the giving back of his fearlessness. The virus in the tunnels offered a silver lining, and he's shaken by this new reality. He closes his eyes beneath the cover of his bedding and whispers, "Make my weakness work for me," as he shudders under the concept of claustrophobia. Has the virus given him strength? Can he outlast the pandemic? He dares not open his eyes, for the perimeter may be closing in on him.
Any questions from anyone who's, Gail?
Jim, would you mind sharing, you talked about you belong to a writing group of veterans, and
Yes.
Also, so that helps with the writing?
It certainly did. I had, you want to sit down?
No, go ahead.
I think I do. When I was a kid in high school, or even before school, I was not classroom oriented. To stand up here like this would be the last thing in the world I would ever want to do. But the writing class changed me. It's offered by Fordham, free to all veterans. It's called the Veterans Writing Workshop, and it's Fordham, Westchester, right here in Westchester Avenue. I saw an article on it in the paper, the Journal News, and I thought, can I do this? Can I give this a shot? Public speaking always terrified me, but I thought I can do this. I went, and it was difficult at first, but then I began to open up, hold people's attention, and people started to really listen to what I had to say, and I discovered through the writing class that I actually had something to say. And during the pandemic, we went to Zoom classes, which is a little different, but it was a way of showing up at class and just getting dressed from the waist up. So that really worked for me as well. But yeah, our teacher always says that writing is not therapy, but it is very therapeutical to put your words on paper. And there's not a day that goes by when if I can't articulate a feeling that I'm having and put it on paper, then I'm having a bad day. And until I can write about it, it all works out for me.
You clearly have a talent for writing beautifully. How long have you been part of this writing group?
I've been in the group since 2018, but I've written most of my life. I put it on hold to tend to my mother when she got older, and I took her in with me. And I knew this was what I wanted to do, but I just had to put it on hold. So it's opened me up, it's enabled me to do this, which I could never do before. So, and thanks to great friends like Mike.
And you do it very well.
No, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mark. Dennis? Okay, at this point, we'd like to introduce Al Bender. Uh-oh. Commander of the Larchmont American Legion Post 347. Al, you want to come up and say a few words?
Excuse me, I don't use those things. 7 years ago, no. Anyway, since I was 6, I have always had a nickname, Ralph. And it wasn't a nice one, it was Ralph Cramden. Because I had a big mouth. But I capitalized on that. The American Legion was formed in March of 1919, and of all places, Paris, France. One of the founders was Lieutenant Colonel Teddy Roosevelt Jr., the president's son. He was with the American Expeditionary Force and seen what a bad deal veterans were getting on their return. So with that, the American Legion was put together. Now, going back to Flint Park, which I'm here to talk about, James Flint, the Flint family of Larchmont, donated the deed to Flint Park to the village of Larchmont in September of 1915. That's how long Flint Park has been with us. Also, a lot of people don't know, Flint lost 2 sons and Joyce Kilmer on the same day at the Battle of the Marne in World War I. So it came to us to the point we were formed and meeting in various churches and school groups. So we petitioned in June of 1930 the village trustees to request permission to erect an American Legion building in Flint Park. The village of Larchmont agreed to grant American Legion Post 347 a charter to erect a building structure in Flint Park. July 3rd, 1974, we were hit by lightning. Fire disseminated the entire building. September 23rd, 1974, the American Legion Post appealed to the village of Larchmont to reconstruct the post building destroyed. It was agreed on. We've been there again ever since. In 1975, we reopened. The only problems we had lately, of course, has been what everybody has had, COVID. We only can help the veterans, and that's part of what we do always. We will bring down 70 to 75 PTSDs from Kingsbridge or Montrose, feed them, entertain them with various performers from the area, and have them come out because they're under 6-month lockdown. It's not a case that your 6-month period in either one of the veterans' hospital is a short period. If you really want to stay sober and you really want to stay healthy, you gotta do that long term. So that's what we're there for, strictly helping veterans. If people are not aware of it, but 25% of all suicides are veterans. 15% of the homeless are veterans. So that's why the American Legions are out there. We're here to aid. The American Legion was the one that came out with the GI Bill of Rights. That's why it's part of our laws of the land on how to treat veterans. It all goes back to Teddy Roosevelt Jr. and all the fine people in the room that are Legionnaires as well. We put it together and we help whatever we possibly can do to the veterans. I wish I could say more as far as my knowledge of Flint Park, but Flint Park is just a gorgeous park. If you've been in through the park, you will see a cannon. That cannon is a 150 millimeter German howitzer. Lo and behold, it goes back to the same battle that the Flint boys in Kilmer were killed in. It's from the Battle of the Marne. We are in the process of restoring it again, okay, which will be coming shortly. And we're very proud of that cannon. It takes us back to really the days of the Flints and what they have done for Larchmont. Now, I can't say too much more because there's not too much more to say other than praising the Legion for what we do. We're always looking for new members. If you're a veteran, we'll take you on in a heartbeat. If you're a son, in other words, your father or a male heir served in the armed forces of the United States, you're capable of being a son of the Legion. If you're a woman, because of your husband or any adult male that was your father, grandfather, uncle, you could also become a member of the American Legion Auxiliary. That's our three branches. The American Legion and the ALA, the American Legion Auxiliary, are sponsored by Congress. Excuse me, my cold. The Sons of the Legion were formed in 1935 because the World War I vets got too old and they needed somebody to rely on. So that's when they started taking on Sons of the Legion. So we always could use a few sons as well. It's very, very important we keep this progress going. Now, any questions before I do the Gettysburg Address? Nothing?
Very informative. Thank you so much.
Oh, come on, listen.
I was going there on my bicycle. Now I know the history.
Hey, now you know what it's all about that. That goes back, all right? 1939, we put that, with the blessings of the Flints as well as the village of Larchmont, that's when we put that building up. And it's been there, and we still are doing our best to aid any veterans out there. And it's something to think over. Here we fought, or they fought, we fought. And they're the ones that are totally annihilated. Anytime you get out of the service, hey, you wash your hands like Pontius Pilate. Nobody but the Legion and the BFW, don't get me wrong, the Veterans of Foreign War are very, very strong in aiding our veterans. Oh, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I am so impressed with the fact that you are, I didn't know, that you actually bring veterans, the PTSD.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And work with them. That moves me.
Well, we're going to start again. Montrose and Kingsbridge will not let them out because of COVID, but they promised us after the 1st of January, they're going to start letting them come down, so we will be having Thanksgiving and any other thing. The only thing, bear in mind, okay, and it's not a slam, we can't tell them where they're going because most of them are recuperating drug and alcohol abusers, and they can call a buddy up, and somebody can be in the weeds with a bottle of Dr. Smirnoff, and so we can't let them know where the bus is taking them. So there's a lot of posts, not just ours, that also did this thing with the veterans. That's one thing we do, and we're very, very proud of it. Gene DiNapoli, New York State's #1 Elvis impersonator. He will come down and entertain. He starts doing his 70s, 80s stuff, goes back into the office. All of a sudden, it's not taking a break. He's getting into his Elvis outfit. All of a sudden, 2001 Space Odyssey starts playing. Here comes Elvis. And he rocks him as Elvis as well. Excuse me. Boy, Ray, you've been to one of ours. A couple of ours, right? Yeah. I don't entertain. Not much. Okay. Anything else? I'm a former Air Force veteran. I shouldn't use the word former because once you're a veteran, you're always a veteran. I served from 1966 to 72, and leads me into another little part of my story. If you ever had the honor of meeting a recruiter, boy, they sure can lie to you. I joined the Air Force and I was told I was going to be hooked up with the newest thing out there. You might have heard of it. Computers. Mind you, this is 1966. So I was all set to go to Chanute Air Force Base for computer training. After Lackland, we all go to Lackland for basic training. And people don't realize it, where all the branches of the service are part of the Department of Defense. Air Force is part of the Hilton hotel chain. You didn't know that, did you? That's why we live so good. Now, anyway, all of a sudden my orders came in. And I'm going to Shepherd Air Force Base. And I wondered why. So they told me, stand up straight. 5'4.5". Okay. Now I'm 76 years old and still don't wear glasses, knock on wood. I have 20/15 vision. So we're going to do something with you. We're going to make you a tail gunner on a B-52. I fitted perfectly. I see perfectly. And yeah, there was computers to play with, so I got my computer stuff. So that's how they get you. But I wouldn't trade that 6 years for all the smoke in the world. Being on flight status, being with my same crew for 6 years. And believe it or not, we're all still alive. We get together once a year and still make fun of me because I'm the only enlisted man on board. It's awful tough, 7 officers and 1 EM. So they had to make me a staff sergeant just to keep me as an NCO. So. All right, so that's my little story. Skip, I started with Skipper Donahue in kindergarten at Holy Trinity. And believe it or not, after all these years, we still talk. And Skip, he always said to me, I wouldn't do your job. Why? I'm at 42,000 feet over the DMZ. They can't see us. They call us a whistling death. Skipper was a bubblehead. For anybody who does not know what a bubblehead is, it's a submariner. And that's a dangerous thing. And they gave Skip the best. He was part of the USS Tusk. It was launched in 1948. It wasn't a nuke. 46, I'm sorry, I had the year wrong. 1946, it was a battery-operated diesel boat. And Skip, you tired of sleeping with the torpedoes?
Love it.
You loved it. He's got one at his house, doing the same thing. But I went together with Skip a long time, and Holy Trinity was where I learned my prepositions: aboard, about, above, across, after, against, among, along, around, up, behind, between, down, during, through, and to, sometimes also. And each these kids in school, what's a preposition? So we've been through an awful lot together. Then I made the big turn, Mamaroneck High School. I had the privilege of meeting Ben Orsino. Is also a member of our post, and I could not to this day figure out why an Italian would be in my German class. Benny's going to explain it, right, Ben? All right. So I wasn't brought here really to entertain. I was, if you had any questions and everything else that I could possibly answer, all right? Nobody has a word for me? Good.
I do, but I'll ask them privately.
Uh-oh. What did I do?
Nothing. Well, one question actually, sir, is what's the definition of a veteran? Is it someone who has served and then no longer serves, or is still serving?
No, a veteran is the veteran, whether they are still serving or not serving. Anybody who served becomes a veteran. Okay? And we're very proud of that. Skip?
Yeah.
Who else in this room? Raise your hand if you're a veteran. All right, see you? We're all around us here. All right? So I hope I answered that question correctly. Going back to a little history, I love history. That's why I love being here. My family settled in New Rochelle in 1861. That's a long time. okay? And the west end of New Rochelle, what used to be known as Dutch Hill. You can tell by all the beer stills out there. There was a lot of beer manufactured up that end of Wood. Any time I get uppity because of the fact I've been here since 1861, my wife reminds me she's a Bull Smith. Smithtown, Long Island, the founder. 1621, Oscar the Bull Rider Smith. So I just shut up and mind my own business after that. So a lot of us have been in this country for a long, long time, and we love it. All right? God bless America.
Thank you, Al. That was great. I'm not going to use this thing because it doesn't work. I can't make it work. He actually stole our thunder a little bit, but I'd like to ask Skip and Benny to stand up and
God, please.
show everybody who you are.
All right, Skipper, couple legs to the end.
Okay.
Benny, stand up.
I'd like to say also that when Al was finished with Skip, when they graduated from Holy Trinity, Skip came to me and Rhinebeck. And we went 7 through 12.
That's right.
He went to the best school. He went
Benny.
And then went to the best school. We both went in the Navy. He was underwater. I was above. Okay. I'd like to introduce Barb Pearson, who is the commander of Post 90 in the village of Mamaroneck. Barbara's going to give us quite a history of history, because she has a lot of it. Barb Pearson.
Thank you.
You need this? No.
Nobody's ever called me Ralph, but I was a teacher for 5 years, and I can assure you I was called a bunch of other things. I would like to start tonight by telling you about a gentleman named Michael Looney, who was born in 1751 in Botetourt County, Virginia. When Michael was in his 20s, when Patrick Henry screamed "Liberty or Death," every patriotic colonist quit his work and shouldered arms. Mike was number 30 on the list in Captain Henry Pauling's company and fought in the Battle of Fort Pleasant, West Virginia in 1774. He served in Lord Dunmore's wars in 1775. Mike fought in 2 battles, served his time, and was mustered out sometime between 1776 and 1777. Then he returned to his home and completed his education, which was big on his list. He eventually moved his family to Stanley Valley in Tennessee. Where's this page here? I'm sorry. In about 1806, Mike's brother Jonathan and their cousin Ben of Craig County, Virginia, with Daniel Boone, stopped by on their way to Kentucky. Our tradition says that they prevailed on Mike to make a trip with them. On their return, Ben was killed by the Indians and Jonathan was taken their prisoner in Cumberland Gap. Mike's Stanley Valley home is said to have been a stopping place for Boone for on more than one occasion. In the 1950s, the Daughters of the American Revolution replaced Mike's gravestone in Seguinsville, Tennessee. In 2019, the Sons of the American Revolution, the State of Franklin chapter, placed a patriot marker at his grave. This is the grave. I was there. I'm proud to say that Michael Looney was my 6th great-grandfather.
Wow.
Yeah. In World War I, my grandfather, Harry Blevins Pearson, he went by Blev, he was a corporal in the 117th Infantry. He was born in 1895. He entered service at Camp Gordon on September 21st, 1917, later going to Camp Sevier, South Carolina. He was promoted to corporal March 2nd, 1919, while in France, for which place he sailed May 11th, 1918. He was wounded in the Battle of Pritts, France, October 8th, 1918, with shrapnel. He received an honorable discharge on April 18th, 1919. I went online and Googled the Battle of Pritts, France on that particular date, and I happened to find a photo from the British War Museum that was from that date, and it's titled American Troops Advancing at Pritts, France. And that was the day my grandfather was wounded at this battle. And I often wonder if one of the people in this photo happens to be my grandfather. Moving beyond that, World War II came along. And my father, as a 17-year-old high school student, my grandmother signed the paperwork to allow him to enlist in the Navy.
Smart man.
He served in World War II on Johnston Island in the Pacific. And then when he returned from the war, he returned to high school, finished his education there, went on to college. That's where he met my mother in Tennessee. Moving forward, in 1972, my brother graduated from high school in Mount Vernon and entered the United States Air Force. He served for 12 years. He got in, it was the end of the Vietnam War. He was stationed up in Plattsburgh working on FB-111s. In 1975, in January, I turned 18, and I had already been bugging all the recruiters in New Rochelle, getting information from each of the branches, and making my decision. Just after my 18th birthday, I went to Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn, took my physical. I had already taken the ASVABs, the aptitude battery, to see what kind of job you're qualified for. Just after I passed the physical, I went down to Brooklyn again and was sworn into the inactive reserves, and I left for basic training in September of '75. A year later, my 17-year-old sister graduated from high school, a month after she turned 17. My mother also signed the paperwork for her to join. My brother, me, and my sister. My brother served for 12 years, I served for 8, and my sister served for 5. War rears its ugly head again in the form of Iraq. My nephew Rob, my older nephew, joins the Army and is deployed to Iraq. Before he goes over there, after he finished his training, he came home on a recruiting assignment for 2 weeks for hometown recruiting and recruited his younger brother. They both ended up in Iraq. They were there at the same time, but never met up. Both were combat wounded. Both of them are fine. My older nephew is still serving. He's been in for over 20 years. He was set to retire, and they offered him a promotion to E7. He took the promotion and extended for an additional 3 years, so he's still serving. His younger brother decided one and done, that was it. And that's my sister with her 2 sons. When my brother and sister and I were all serving together, none of us were stationed in the same place at the same time. A couple of us served at the same base, but we weren't there together. I firmly believe that somehow my mother contacted the Secretary of the Air Force and told him that it would not be a good idea. Also, going back to World War I, I forgot my great-grandfather on the Looney side of my family, which is, well, it's kind of a poor choice of words, but that's the name, because my entire family's a little bit loony. My great-grandfather, Robert Johnson Looney, was an associate member of the Legal Advisory Board and actively engaged in the duties thereof when the occasion occurred he was helping with the recruiting effort in World War I. He had a certificate from the Department of the Army, the Department of War, and another certificate of appreciation from the United States Food Administration. He was a farmer, and he donated a lot of grains and things like that to help with the war effort. And that's my family history. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Barb?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How many of your family were in the military from the beginning?
From the beginning, it was my sixth great grandfather, my grandfather. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot somebody, my uncle. My father's brother served in the Air Force during the Korean War. He was stationed in Germany. And the less said about that, in polite company, the better. So it was my sixth great grandfather, my grandfather, my father, my uncle, my brother, my sister, me, and my two nephews.
Wow.
So 9 people.
Very impressive.
There's a rumor that there was a scout during the Civil War also, but since the family lived in Virginia and Tennessee, it was, we're not too sure about it, though. There's no documentation about it. But all these other things have been documented, and I'm very proud.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure to serve for people like you. I wish I could do it again.
Thank you, Barb.
That was my book. Thank you.
We were supposed to have the commander from our VFW post 1156 couldn't make it. The quartermaster was going to come in and speak for him, and he's not here. So I'm just assuming that he couldn't make it here for whatever reason. That's Tom Ayers. So I just want to thank everybody and ask anybody if they have any questions.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Mike and Dennis, for putting this together.
Okay.
Well, Mike did it.
What do you want to say, and I'll go there.
Okay, before we finish up, I just want to say thanks to Gail and John for 4 years of exceptional work in the Historical Society. What was accomplished in those 4 years is just unbelievable. Ending at the murals. Right, as co-presidents, right. But before we end, I just want to point out we have a lot of displays set up, military uniforms that have been donated by various people over the years, and we try to get as many different ones up as we can. Other military memorabilia, a sale table here, take advantage of, refreshments in the back, and just today, our latest calendar has come in, so we hope that you'll all pick up a calendar, whether tonight or let me know or let the society know. You'll enjoy it. And with that, I say that's it.
Thanks. John and I thank you as well as the rest of the board. Appreciates everybody being here. I think because the word veteran was defined for me. My son is a veteran. I said that before, and other people have said, no, he's not, Gail, because he's still in the Navy. But he's in his 17th year. And so what I really, as a family member, I want to thank the family members who are here, because every veteran is backed by their family, and it's a very significant, meaningful experience, I'm sure. And if you want to learn more about the Historical Society, at the back table, our most recent newsletter is there, and got some interesting stories. Right? What else? I think we're good. So
Yeah,
please,
that would be a great idea.
yeah, please enjoy the refreshments. We have lots of good stuff back there. And in the coolers on the left are all the liquids.
Gail, John,
Yes.
and anybody else that's on the board, we'd like to get a picture of the current board. Phyllis, Ray, whoever else is here.
George had to go.
George had to go.
Oh, George had to leave, okay. Barry Proctor Bonacy is going to take a picture for us.
Thank you.
Carol?
Thank you.
Carol, your part, yes.
If we can clear the center of the room,
Don?
and you dance if you want.
Don is here.